Yeah.
Yeah, now it goes.
Yes.
Now I record just the whole thing.
Absolutely. Please, you're my guest.
If you allow.
So you want me to go back over it?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so play can't play.
Mm-hmm.
The gesture is like this, and then the number of cells,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now the performer chooses which cell to be in, number 1, 2, 3, or 4, and can only choose one. And when I give a play gesture, that's going to be cell 1, and then this would be 2, 3, 4, etc. And then here's 1 again. What the performer does is chooses his or her material and performs absolutely right on the play gesture. You can't come in later. You can't sneak in, nor can you sneak out. You must come right in. And when you come in, you play your material as if you're the only person in the room, almost like being in a conservatoire where you're in your practice room, and you're playing. Like you're not paying attention to anybody. Everybody's in their own practice room playing. But you're developing your material at this rate 2 times as fast as point-to-point or scanning. And so you've chosen cell 1, you can so then you would go out at cell 2. So the play gesture is both a time to begin and a time to exit the composition. So you've chosen cell 1, here's cell 1, and here comes cell 2, you're out, the duration is up to me, the sound painter, here's cell 3, I might leave that there for a while, and here's cell 4.
That's fine. I didn't want you to repeat the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
I just thought that...
I'm like a book with these things. I mean, I can do that. Yes.
I just thought that for the next science, it's
okay.
more sure.
And if you forget about that, just write me. I'll explain to you. But it's a really wonderful, rich gesture to work with.
Mm-hmm.
But it does take a lot of... I don't teach this gesture. I didn't teach this group the gesture. We were here all week. So, I mean, I usually hold back on them because it's quite... I mean, you're working with... it depends on who you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
How much time you have. Yes, so what are the...
Well, I have one big question about... I also work with actors. And I want to know how to sign actors.
Well, besides the sign actor, what does an actor do with a long tone? Right? Maybe long tone is always like with the other disciplines, almost the most difficult one to explain. Dancers.
Just a minute. Afterwards, I don't know how big it will be, the film. Can you put it on my flash disk?
Sure.
Yeah, how there's 3 gig, I think, that will be.
I think it makes it compact, so okay. If not, then we can cut it.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Then I don't have to...
Yeah, it's harder with the cameras.
Yes.
Just hold them up.
Sure.
Looks like I'm saying hi, Johan. Yeah. It's the long tone that's maybe the most difficult to explain, usually in the beginning. But an actor, you know what a dancer does with long tone. You understand what that is. An actor always, the material is always driven by the word, a word, 2 words, whatever. It's the word that drives the material. So, if I say actors, long tone, they don't respond like a singer or someone go, oh, no. They think of a word. So they're either going to hang on to the sound of the consonant, if it's possible, like s can be hung on to, or can be hung on to. Or it's usually going to be an O or oo or something, and it has to be driven by a word. Like, hey, I'm thinking hey, or you, I'm thinking you, or I'm thinking stop. I can't go because it won't go anywhere. I can't go talk. So you have to think of a word, and that's what drives, what is driving the long tone.
And it's possible to say
yes, and that's what we were saying before. That's what's called long tone speaking. So yeah, that's different. But historically, going back 20-something years, that's what long tone used to be for actors, historically. That's where it comes from. But then I removed that so that it would be not this motion moving inside of a long tone, sound-wise. So I removed and specifically made, long tone speak a content, like what you just did. So now it's static, except that it's kind of a little bit of a launching. So if I'm going to say hey, it'll be hey, and I try to hang on to the E sound as much as I can, but I have to go the huh to get into it. So that's what an actor is doing, is using words for everything. So for example, if just a long tone, actors long tone, and someone goes stop.
Mm-hmm.
So then that way you have that ability to get, when you say, finish your idea with off, and then you step into it, so it's done outside of the box, and then you step into that, they finish their word.
But then they finish the word.
Yeah, so I was thinking stop, actors, and I think stop.
Mm-hmm.
Stop, yeah. Is the best you can do it, So that gives you something else to work with. So if the actor is just going, oh, you don't have this. Yeah. It doesn't exist. So that's why I removed the speaking and made it something specific. Oh, sorry, long-term speak.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is words. So pointillism is dealing with pieces of words. Word itself is this. This is the gesture for word.
Mm-hmm.
So you could say, actor 1, use improvise, right? Improvise with 2 words only, and it becomes a very interesting, and actors are often very brilliant about how many different ways they can say, a couple of words. And then when it's minimalism, any of the gestures, it's all driven by text. But the thing that I think that I would suggest is that, well, two things. One is that when an actor is doing something normally in theater, they often use their bodies, Why did you say that to me? They're always, the body's in it. Where I remove this, why did you say that to me? And I take it flat with nothing, so that the actor is driving entirely with the voice, and the gesturing isn't there. It can then be added by using the gestures, so that it's looks like this, and you shake it on the side.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can add gestures. So this is gestures. This is gestures around the face, working with facial gestures. And this is just gestures, on the body somewhere. So normally, this is how I default my actors. I default them that they don't use their body to express themselves. It's really just through speaking. And it really helps the intention behind the text, if it's done that way. Because this, depending upon the skill of your actors, this can take away from the actual projection, So I find it's better to just ask them to be flat and stay in neutral and don't move. And then I'll add this. That's my default. And then when I do add it, I'll say, I wouldn't say default gestures. I would just say, actors with gestures now, and now they know. Actors with gestures. And now it just means now you're going to gesture.
Does there have to be content in what you say? Then there's really no difference with pointillism with speak.
that's what I was going to get to. Normally I default actors to speak in what's called word salad. Word salad. This is another whole world you're getting into now.
Yeah, I know.
Right? And word salad is a psychology term meaning not being able to keep the train. Look at these shoes. Mom, I told you 5 times. I told you finally made it. And you got a green. Flies are on your shoes. Millions. That's word salad. You know, I'm doing it in a certain duration, but actors can do it, stretch out a phrase a little bit longer. You can't hold a train of thought. So I usually default my actors in word salad. They hate it. Because the reason being that if you're working with one actor in your group, right, and she's sitting over there, maybe she has a microphone, who knows, I mean, it's positioned, everything's right for having a microphone. Anyway, she can be heard. And she starts telling a story. The rest of the group is musicians. And she starts telling the story. The public is the first thing they do is they want to know what's going on with the story. It becomes this. So if you want that, that's fine. Then you use narrative. And this is meaning to be narrative, to tell a story. So word salad will ask your actors to speak in a nonsensical way. And narrative will say, tell a story. But I default to my actors, I just tell them, you're in word salad. I don't even do this, you know. They just know, don't tell a story with me, because really the problem is the public will go to, well, what is she saying? You know?
And is word salad similar to something like slam poetry also? So it's up to the actor, what is his main instrument?
Exactly. It's up to the actor what they're doing at that point. You know, but it depends. So if I'm doing point to point, I mean, you can't tell a story. You know, you're using text. You might say, "Oh wow, oh wow." You know, there is not really going to be a story that's told in a normal fashion, tempo-wise. So it depends on what you're doing. If you say improvise to an actor, and I default it, they can tell the story, do whatever they want. You know, in Play Can't Play, for example, it's defaulted that actors and dancers can get up, and my default is that they work within like a meter and a half of their chair. So the actor can stand up, you know, and walk into the space a little bit, you know. And by default, so then when the next cell comes, the actor just sits back down calmly. Or you could default it, they stay in place. So that's another whole thing we're speaking about, how to move around the stage. We can speak about that some also later if you want to.
I think as a rule with actors, you have
you're
to work with a lot of people.
Need that. You're going to need that. So just speaking about the basic things for actors, I default them, again, I just default them, don't move, just speak. And, and again, they don't like that so much, but you need to know why you're asking them that. And then you know, don't tell a story, please. Let me sign that. You know? And let me sign when to add gestures. And again, I would just say actor, and I just say with gesturing now. So that means that from now on, instead of defaulting gestures, because that can be misunderstood.
Yeah.
You know, defaults are replacing things. So you're not replacing it, just say, maybe add actors with gestures, now they become actors gesturing, you know.
How do you assign them? Well, of course, you can get up, but then that they can walk around and do whatever they want. Like,
well, if you say improvise, by default, improvise, they're free to get up and go anywhere. But as I was saying earlier this week or midweek, you default your space. Mm-hmm. So maybe we can cover that. I'll stay shot up the camera. Hey.
Hello.
Hi.
Are you joining us?
Why not?
Why not? Good, you're welcome.
Ik ga het over acteren.
Hydrofractieren?
Yeah.
Cool.
And everything clean.
I cleaned your own.
Oh no!
Alles wordt gefilmd, hè. Zodat je het weet.
Oh!
Et voilà.
We were speaking about a few things, and maybe we can at some time go back over what we've already spoken about. So,
It's okay.
okay, because it's pretty interesting stuff, but it's also it's another level entirely. You know? But anyway, so we're speaking about actors, and I was just saying how I default that they sit in the chair. You know, they sit in the chair, just to catch you up real quick. They sit in the chair. They don't speak, telling a story. It's called word salad. They just, you know, speak without making any sense. It's nonsense, not keeping a thought. And if I want them to tell a story, first of all, they're seated like this. They don't tell a story. And they don't use gestures. And if I want them to gesture while they're speaking, and I say actor with gesture. This is gesture around the body, and this is gestures around the face, using facial gestures. So then I can add it, instead of having the actor, you know, using his or her hands all the time. Because if you have dancers, and the actor's moving, it can be kind of, it's a little bit out of your control as the composer, you know. You lose the piece a little bit if you have all this waving, unless you've signed it. So no, the actor is not telling a story, and if you want them to tell a story, you just simply do this, you know, actor, tell a story.
So from your experience, you learned that actors and dancers, they like to move with the hands, so then it was okay, we need to...
Actors especially will gesture when they're speaking. Hey! So I defaulted it. It's actually a theater training that I've had. It's not like sound painting. It comes from my training as an actor. Is that you don't, I learned you don't use anything. You first must learn to project with your voice. Your character's got to come out here first. So I adapted that to sound painting because I thought it fit sound painting really well. Then I can add all of these other things later. You know, I can add telling a story. I can add gesturing. I can add standing up. I can add changing positions on the, you know. The more you take down the concept to its basic quality, the more you can build it back up as the composer. You know, that's why I took improvisation out of point to point and scanning and play can't play. I removed improvisation. And when I removed it one time, it was at Bard College in New York some 15 years ago, and I removed improvisation from play can't play 15 years ago. It was now you couldn't improvise, fully improvise. 2 of my orchestra members quit. Because every time I would go to give play can't play, they improvised every time. So it made it impossible for me to compose. It was like it just took off on its own. And I couldn't do anything with it. It was too much direction. You know, too much development. So fast I couldn't, there was nothing to really compose with. So I removed it. You know. Like all of these so-called rules and stuff are it's for more freedom, not less.
Yeah.
You know, it's more freedom, and it gives you more possibilities. So anyway, that's kind of where we were at, along with this gesture play can't play. And then I was going to speak about the stage. You know, we have these imaginary regions. We have the neutral position. We have the box. We have this kind of partition in front of us. We have this vertical field where it hits and long tones and ladder and things like that take place. And then we have the imaginary stage right in front of the sound painter. So this is stage left, stage right, upstage, mid-stage, downstage. And this is the whole space. Use the whole space. And of course this is stand up and this is walk. This is in place, to stay in place. And this is stop. And it doesn't mean to stop. Like when I say, you know, actor 1, stand up, walk tempo slow, come down stage, stop, slowly enter. The actor will stand up and walk. Well, I sort of was a little bit more downstage middle, you know? And I stand up when I get here, and I said stop, but when I get here, I continue. Because I'm not stopping as in stopping, it's not this, it just means where you stop in the position on the stage. So you'd have to say stop, slowly exit, or stop, off, in order to get the actor to actually stop, you know, completely.
The nerd class. I'm just going to say goodbye. Ciao, man.
Ciao. It was nice to see you.
Yeah, great. Hope we see each other. Salut. Nous, on se voit certainement de toute façon. Man.
All right, great.
Nice working with you.
Good work.
And we'll talk really soon.
See you on Skype next week, probably.
Yeah. Okay.
Have a good drive back.
Thanks.
Safe
Talk
travel.
soon.
Yeah.
Great job.
All the best.
Ciao.
And so you can make any angles you want, you know. You can carve any kind of angles, you know. Because you have this imaginary stage in front of you, and that allows you to.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not an exact science, you know. I mean, you know, this is going to be walking, you know, up, left, up, right, you know. And in order to exit the stage, you know, like the door might be all the way, you know, up left. You just go. And it takes them out off the stage, because this is the stage, and you just need to go beyond your hand. But it's done this way. You know, you take your elbow right into your body. So, you know what I mean? It's not like out here like this. It's right here. Close, arms are close to you. And that's the sign. And this one's a little bit more awkward. You have to lean into the box a little bit to make it happen. So that's main stage directions, and you know this for bringing the group together as
Yeah, we did.
That's in the exercise.
you understand that you're spreading it out, so it becomes like sort of a chessboard. When you do this, it doesn't mean to just, it means to literally spread out like chess.
Does it spread out?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
That's to make a line. So now I bring the whole group together, and I can turn them into a line and actually move on the stage like this.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of practice. But I mean, for the group,
Yeah.
recently we did an outdoor piece with the Swedish Soundpainting Orchestra, which I play in and act in also. And we spent it was three rehearsals, 4-hour rehearsals, 4-hour rehearsals, just on line, just to get that correct. Because it's a physical thing. You have to. And even when we did it in concert, it wasn't so good, but it worked. It's hard to do. So this is making a crowd, and then you just turn the side and make a line. You know, take the line and move it back.
How can you make a dialogue or
Dialogue is
interaction?
this. Dialogue is this. So dialogue like this, and sorry, I'm trying to think. Yeah, so we want to have dialogue. So actor 1, dialogue with actor 2, or just simply actor 1, 2, dialogue.
Then you don't have to sign that you're out of word salad because you're in a
No,
dialogue.
because it's a dialogue. That's right.
Dialogue is always in narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, dialogue's going to be narrative. Otherwise, you would just simply say what? To make a dialogue with word salad, you would simply say dialogue with word salad. And that could work.
Yeah.
You know, I could just kind of bounce off of your nonsense, and you bounce off of my nonsense. You know?
Yeah, but it's maybe also possible with dancer 1, a dialogue
Yes.
with musician or
Absolutely.
with string 1.
Absolutely.
And then musicians at that moment they have to look at each other if you're in dialogue.
Yeah, dialogue is kind of like, well, this is facings.
Yeah.
If you want to default that, go ahead. You know what I mean? But know that this gesture exists, and I default that they always face me.
Yeah.
So if they're going to have a dialogue, it can be very interesting. If they're not, like, imagine the person is all the way upright, you know, and I'm the actor, and I'm turning around doing this, you know. That could be cool, if that's what you want.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's all you have. You can do this. The facing has to stay this way. So now I'm just going to speak towards the sound painter, and this person I'm having a dialogue with is going to also speak in that direction. So we're never going to see each other. But if you wanted to see each other, you just simply turn their head like this. You know, and this is body, and this is head. So this is body like this, head like that. So, you know. So there's all this different stuff like that. You know. You can really micromanage the movement.
You already showed us some intense, like murderous intense, love intense. Can you silent so that
yes,
or is it still work? I hope it still work.
And then remind me about the defaults and neutrals.
Yeah.
Okay? Tell me defaults and neutrals, so I can go over that again when it comes to moving. But the basic intensity work with a murderous, like a pistol, intent, right? And you understand what that means. You remember, it's not saying I'm going to kill you. It's not that. You know, it's like imagine you were repairing your computer. You know, and you have a manual that you read to repair the computer. But so that might be, you know, active palette 1, you know, with murderous intent. Now, so you read the manual as if it has this killing kind of quality behind it, but you're saying words that have nothing to do with it. It contrasts that feeling, you know. So that's murderous intent. And then there's vamp. Vamp. Like vamp for music, but it's not the same for an actor. It's sexy. It's a way of being sexy. So it's sexy intent. With musicians, you say vamp feel. Feel the style, right? So vamp intent is a way of being sexy when you read. So now you read the manual about repairing your computer with a very sexy way. So it's a real contrast from the murderous intent. And then there's the anchor intent. These are the basic ones, right? Anchor. So you speak like a person in the news. A person that says, well, today in the news, you'll never believe what happened, you know? And that person is, you know, speaking with a news voice. So then you speak the entire thing with this news voice. And so that's like holding a microphone. And then there's loving intent. And then you speak this with this sort of loving way. And all right, so loving intent. Now,
confused intent?
Confused intent, yes.
Do you have something like
this? Yeah. It's not called confused intent. What's it called? I'm gonna have to think about what that's called again. But so it's broken. But I will remember that. Broken heart intent. Broken heart, you know. So now you're broken-hearted about it when you're reading this, you know. And then there's jock intent, and that's the person who's like the sports person, you know. It's really very much the American football player. Who's like, yeah, man, give me a beer, yeah. You know? You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing, you know? And you read it like that, you take your screwdriver, you know? So it's real, as out as possible, you know? It's really like this person, this man that spends all his day doing this kind of stuff, you know? Like nothing up here is all here, you know? Of course, that's not true. It's a prejudice, but it's a character. It's really a character. So those are the basic ones. And then there's mysterioso intent, you know, which is being very mysterious, you know. And I'm trying to get confused. How does it go? Now I'm confused about how to do it.
I don't think that's what you're doing now. Maybe it's
No, it has a specific sign for it when you're confused. And then there's bum, B-U-M, rem intent. And that's like, I just don't care, you know? And so now you read this manual, like, you take the screwdriver, you know, and you read it like, I don't care about the screwdriver, you know? But you have to put that character into repairing the computer. You know, so those are the basic ones, you know, and you can do a lot with that. But again, it's kind of, they're fun to work with, especially if you work with palettes. But it becomes, you know, they become a little bit like micromanaging. Because if you went on YouTube and you look for the Brooklyn Sound Painting Ensemble or group, I forget what they're called. The sound painter is Tomi Sanudo, and she's very skilled. She's what we call a technic in sound painting. We have two schools of thought in sound painting. It's called the chancers and the technics. It's something that comes out of the think tank. And the chancers are people that love gestures like play can't play, or scanning, point to point, you know, or surprise group, you know, or surprise.
What's a surprise group?
Well, it's a group that's going to do something, you know. Surprise group, palette one. And so you don't know who's going to be playing palette one. You know, so it's a surprise group.
What's
so,
the gesture for surprise?
In the group. Or surprise group, leave the stage. And you don't know who is going to get up and go.
That's the sign you gave us when we left the
Oh, yes.
to go out.
I didn't give that, but yes, I did it. I did the sign. I actually did the sign.
That sign.
Yeah.
To who?
Just naturally did it, thinking you would understand, you know, because it's quite iconic, you know.
When did you do that? I didn't see that.
I saw it.
Yeah.
On stage?
Detalina. No, yesterday with Detalina.
Oh, yeah.
She was up here like, you know, facing this direction or wherever she was.
Oh,
And then we all left.
You know. But just about Tomi for a second, and these so-called techniques. The chancers, or most sound painters, like to work with the element of chance as a way to gather material for the composition, to search for material. But then there's the technic, who absolutely controls and composes as if notated. And the handful of techniques in this language, when you see them sign, it is, what did you just do? I mean, there's just a few of them, you know. But
so you see all of them.
Yeah,
Go.
Yeah, and I'm like, you know, I mean, I know the language really pretty well, you know, and I look and I go, what the hell was that? You know, and so from this, instead of fighting with them like I did for like 4 or 5 years, I decided that this was a school of a way of composing light that's breaking off in its own path, and it is. And there's a number of people that kind of have a mixture of leaning more towards the technic thing and some that leans more towards the chancer side, you know, and there's a mixture of that. Because if you go into YouTube, and if you can find Brooklyn Sound Painting Orchestra or Ensemble, there's one actor, I think it's the actor, I forget his name, he's also a very good sound painter. But he's being sound painted by Tomi, I think. And then there's a woman that's being sound painted. So it's just the actor, and all you see is like here. And maybe now and then you might understand like one of the gestures. You might go, oh, okay, I see, that was probably memory, or that was Staffy's. But otherwise, you cannot see anything. And it might as well have been composed, like he was reading exactly what he should do. That's how very specific that the language can be with certain people. Really, it's micromanaging, as we say. Every single thing you're going to do, I'm going to tell you how to do it. Everything. You're not going to give me any surprise. I'm not going to compose with surprise. I'm going to tell you to do everything. So that's an interesting side of the language. So the reason I bring it up is because with all of these intentions, you know, they're great to have, especially working with palettes or, you know, to make something funny is going on and you want to contrast it. Like, you know, we've done, you know, scanning with like crying, you know, and then someone's crying and you want, you know, actor one to relate to this person with a vamp intent. You know, so I'm saying this person crying, this other actor, you know, you say use the whole space or whatever, you take them over there They start to be sort of in this sexy kind of way towards someone who's crying, you know. And it can be very, you know, very interesting as to what comes out of that. So that's cool to micromanage in that kind of way, and I do that a lot. But you can receive so much information from your actors and dancers just with the gestures that are like chants. Leave it up to them a lot of the times to give you all of those qualities. When they speak, sometimes it's going to be sexy, sometimes it's probably not going to be like this, like anger. But sometimes it can be murderous, or sometimes it can be brokenhearted, or sometimes it can be loving. They will give you all of those things. But if you want to, you know, play around with different styles and things, or different intentions, then they're fun to work with also. Anyway, questions?
The asshole fader, how was that?
Yeah, the asshole thing is
And what does it mean?
it goes with status, you know. Like someone with high status would be me right now because I'm the one that's talking and you're listening and, you know, and I carry the conversation. I'm carrying the direction of everything. But imagine we're in a party or something. Last night we were all sitting around the table. There wasn't anybody really so high status. The status was being passed around. Nobody was commanding the table the whole time. You know, often in like a free improv group, there will be 2 or 3 people that just will not stop. It's usually a saxophone player. They just don't ever leave any silence, you know, and they're very high status, you know. But with actors, high status is that person that garners the attention of everybody. You know, I want everybody to pay attention to me. You know. And of course, you can change the status to be something, you know, less. So now I'm not the person that's demanding the attention. I'm kind of. We were all about here last night. Everybody had something to say. Conversation turned towards different people for different things. I spoke with all of you about something. Other people spoke with. We all spoke amongst ourselves. It was very collective. You know, that's kind of here. You know, and then here is, of course, you know, not really participating too much. And being here and here is, you know, like the person might be sitting down like you are, but you're low status, but you're a high asshole. So everything about what you do would make me think, and all the other people in this small party, that you don't like us, and you would love to tell us to go fuck off. You know, and everybody is, you know, feels that from you. So all I would do would tell the actor, you know, what that means. And I would describe, think of Jack Nicholson, you know, and maybe you know what I mean? Jack Nicholson is the ultimate at doing this. He has that down like nobody. I mean, I forget what the movie is, but he's mumbling under his breath, or he's, you know, he takes care of a dog or something.
Yeah, as good as it gets.
As good as it gets, right? That, and you just need to watch that movie to know this. You know what I mean? He's not really high status. He's kind of like, he's always mumbling, kind of. But you don't like him. He's an asshole. As big as he can possibly be, you know? So that's where this comes in, you know? Someone like this that's like this. You just have to tell your actors what it means and let them figure it out, how to do it. But you need to know, are they really doing this? You know, are they really doing this fader? It kind of, it's really more like 3 different levels, really, you know. But of course you graduate up to it. But,
and these status fader applies.
Yeah, to musicians, to dance.
So if you say to somebody improvise with high status, and other improvise with low status, and then maybe crossfade the intensity, that applies also to the musicians.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then if you want some musician to improvise kind of with a high status and high asshole, then
the audience is going to run off.
Yeah, you know the musicians don't want to work with that person anymore. It's because all they want is for you to give me room to play, you know. And that exists in a game by John Zorn called Cobra. That same concept exists in what's called the gorilla. The gorilla is high status, high asshole. Anarchist, you know, just destroys everything. I don't give a damn about what you're playing. I'm going to play my shit and fuck you guys. Sorry, I mean, that's, you know, if I'm training people, that's exactly how I explain it. You know, so that they understand. Because when you work with musicians, only musicians, like one time at a conference at the University of Michigan 6 years ago, you know, I taught musicians in the public. I was giving a lecture on sound painting to this big conference of improvisers from around the world, you know, professors and professionals and da-da-da-da-da. And I decided to teach them a little bit about how sound painting works in theater, to explain its multi and interdisciplinary aspects, you know. And when I showed everybody this, they just laughed, you know. And it insulted some of the musicians, some of the professors. I quit the organization after that because they got mad at me for doing this gesture. They were so conservative about it. And the reason I bring the story up is because when you go to use these kinds of gestures, this is a bad gesture, you know, but you know, it is and it isn't. But it doesn't mean it means something specific in sound painting, you know, and it has nothing to do with calling the group an asshole. It's a way of getting a type of theater to happen. But the musicians in this conference, they just thought it was funny. They didn't understand. So we have these worlds, these walls between, you know what I mean, between disciplines. There's the dancers, they don't understand the musicians, they don't understand the actors. More and more those walls are breaking down, you know. But they're still there, so you have to be a little bit... I always explain why these exist if I have a multidisciplinary group for the first time, so that they don't think that I'm trying to be some kind of asshole myself. You know, that this exists for a reason, because do you go to the theater and you never hear anybody use a cuss word like, hey, fuck you? I mean, does that happen anymore? How many theater pieces or how many movies do you go to where there's no cursing? It's everywhere. One time working at the University of Iowa, I didn't have any actors. I was doing an opera, a sound-painted opera based on the life of Christopher Columbus. And I had to use musicians to be my actors, and they would not say curse words.
Why?
Because they were from the middle of America, they were very religious, and they wouldn't curse. And of course, those people could never be actors. Because in this day and time, if you don't say shit or something like that, you can't be an actor. Unless you write your own plays, you know. But anyway, just to speak about that, I mean, I think it's important to be able to understand that the disciplines sometimes don't understand each other. And that's a big role for you as sound painters. When you start becoming multidisciplinary, you know, to understand, you know, how the language works between the disciplines, how this means one thing for one, this for another, how this can apply to a musician, like what you said, Antonio, you know, how this could be this or this could be that, or you could crossfade it, you know. All the gestures cross over to the other disciplines. Then another thing, you're okay? Your hands
Yeah.
I mean, we're moving into some hard stuff here. So, but this is hard but basic. This is basic when it comes to movement. Whether it's an actor or a dancer or anybody moving on stage, this is level 1 stuff. Not this necessarily, but this business. That's level 1. Okay, imagine, you know, I'm I'm an actor and I'm just standing here moving, you know, and I've got some kind of character and I'm speaking, and, you know, standing here moving around. Now you're going to ask me to move to this position, right? You've got me doing some kind of, you know, thing with gestures, and you want me to move to here. So there's an enormous amount of stuff that has to happen before I can do that. Because the questions are going to come up from the person. Do I keep doing this when I walk? Do I keep doing that? That's a default. So this is the content, and this is a place on stage, right? So I default that if I say, you know, actor one, you know, come here, stop. I'm telling you're the sound painter, right? So come here, stop. So I'm doing this kind of thing. I default that they let go of it, and they come here, and they, well, stop, slowly exit. Now I have to stop walking. So I let it, this material stays over here. Right? So that may seem simple, but it's not. It's not simple in concept, because now I want to take this movement I was just doing and bring it here. Right? By default, I'm just going to walk. And I'm not going to walk with any character. I'm going to walk in a very neutral way. So now I want to take this character. You know, I want to bring this character over there. So I just simply say, you know, continue with this. You know, come here, stop, so right there. And that's that.
If I want to stop moving, keep on talking.
Aha. Okay. So now I'm talking here too. And you want me to stop moving. Oh, so, well, okay, you know, I'm going to do something like that. We could, you know, continue this without movement. I mean, that was another way to do it. I was going to sign something else, but yeah, you say, oh, you know, continue speaking, or continue speaking without movement. And then I stop and I start speaking. Exactly, just take without and take it away. So that's basic that you have to say to anybody moving. When they move, do they take their material with them? And not only that, how do they move? And not only that, if they're backing, do they back up or do they turn? And not only that, do you never ask people to make contact. Never. Unless, I mean, never without asking first, do you have experience with contact? So never ask a dancer to make contact with another dancer unless you know they have experience with contact. The same with an actor. Actors usually do. But you must ask them, do you have experience with contact, with making contact on stage? Oh yes, of course we do. Okay, good. Then you don't mind if I say actor one, contact with actor two. No problem. You don't do that.
But you mean contact to touch
Yeah.
each other,
Yeah,
or
to
form
touch each
one
other.
body?
To touch each other. Yeah. To touch each other, to lift, to, you know.
Yeah, but they are dancers.
Yeah.
They
They're not all, but they,
always?
no, they don't. They do it, but they do it with a partner who they've trained with. If someone has studied, you say, look, have you studied contact improv? If they have,
yeah.
It's cool. You don't have to worry about it. If they haven't studied contact improv, then you need to ask them, are you comfortable making contact with each other?
It's a little bit like the allergy test before the performance.
It is, but it's a safety. It's a safety. It's a safety. So you want to ask, because you can see a lot of injuries if you don't. You see a lot of injuries, and I know it from experience. I don't know it theoretically. I know it because I made a mistake, and someone lost a tooth.
Oh.
Exactly. So you learn
Because there are
Contact
different
with
techniques. techniques
Mergers.
with contact.
There's different techniques of contact.
And how to finish
And-
this, you know.
Hey, I know this guy. He's a great actor in New York. He's fantastic. I've worked with him for years and years. He comes in and out of my orchestra. He is as clumsy as it gets. He will trip over anything. I mean, he is so clumsy. You know the word, right?
Yeah.
Just, and you don't make contact with this guy, you know. And he's a skilled actor, you know. He's really, really good. A lot of credits behind him, but you don't work with him with contact. It's just not a good idea. Because he can hurt people accidentally, because he's a big man. You know, so that's, you know, I mean, those are those things you learn.
Of mice and men.
Yeah, but yeah, that's right. He's George, you know. So then another default is, imagine you have, you know, here's a sound painter, and I turn and I do this somehow, and I'm stuck like this. Now what? You're not going to move. Let's say you're not going to move. The sound painter's going to stay in position. You don't want to do a visual scream by taking the whole body around and saying, "Look at me." You know, you don't want to do that. That's not, doesn't look good in piece. So that's a default. You need to set the defaults that, if by default in my groups, and you have to say this stuff, because if you're working with dancers or actors and you haven't told them these defaults, they're all in this workbook 3 I'm doing. Like, if you don't do it, then the person will stay there, you know, and they won't know what to do. So I defaulted after 20 seconds that the person lets go of what they're doing, whatever the content is, and they'll turn back around and face the sound painting. That's simple. You just set it as a default in rehearsal. Because once you start working with movement, there's all these different things come into play, you know?
Yeah, but you need really somebody who is not really uncreative to remain like this for the rest of the piece.
No, it happens, because what happens is you work. No, I mean, yes and no, because you have, what happens is people have been, you know, like this happened one time to me, you know, and I actually used a gesture. There's only one gesture can get that person to turn around. And then I don't have to yell at him or something. And this guy, he's a dancer I worked with a long time as a saxophonist, improvising to he and this other woman that we were a trio that worked together a lot. So he was an excellent dancer, and he came up to one of the early think tanks, which was a residence. They were a month long. We sound painted every day. We had 2 concerts every weekend for a month, every summer for 4 years, you know, when I first really let the language out to a lot of people. And so he was, you know, stuck like this because he had been learning all this sound painting language, and he didn't want to make, he was frightened in a way to make a mistake. He didn't want to make his own decision because he felt like he couldn't make a decision. So he stayed there. And I'm thinking, okay, he's there for like about 3 or 4 minutes, and I'm thinking, all right, what am I going to do? I really had to come back into the present. And I said, oh, because we were in concert, so I just said, whole group, heckle, Nancy, one, whack. And by rule of heckle, what you do is you turn and you face your hecklers, and then you face you and the hecklers towards the sound painter. And I got out of it. And from that moment on, I set these defaults, you know. From the default at 20 seconds, you turn. So anyway, that's the basic stuff for...
You said to remind you about defaults and neutral.
Okay, so the default, that's what I'm speaking about now, the defaults, right? So the default is a number of things. And the sign is this, default. Right? So a default says break, character, and walk, and stop, right? Now if you want to go back to this, to this character, you might say something like, you might snapshot it, not this, but snapshot it, which records the ambiance.
That's what's tableau vivant.
Yeah, tableau is like this, and snapshot is like this. And snapshot records the ambiance. It's a really good thing for working more linear. It's one of the best. So anyway, to answer, remind me about snapshot. So I would snapshot this or memory this, so that if I walk, whatever I was doing here, when I got here, it would say, you know, go on to memory 1, and now I'll go back to it when I get here. So that's how I could take this, walk without it, and then start it again. You know? And again, all of these kinds of rules and stuff are not there to be complicated. When you learn it, they're actually quite simple, and they make sense. But they come from having so many problems with movement, that the only way to fix these problems are to make these kinds of rules. And then you can sound paint movement. Normally, so you know, when I sound paint dancers, I'm defaulted in launch mode. In launch mode is, you know, this, right? So I am defaulted in launch mode, period, with dancers, so that I can just move right into them and do this, and I receive that, you know. Because if they're moving quickly in the space, there's a lot of, it's really hard. By rule, the dancer only responds to, or actor only responds to what they see. Like the game we play with the crowd, you don't respond unless you see it. So that makes it, there's a lot that you can do in launch mode, and then of course there's other gestures too that are out of launch mode you use with dancers. Your heads are okay?
It's just also sufficient if you need to give the core group and then the sign, and
it's too much.
I mean, sometimes you need 1 second, a fraction of a second, and then you can see the sign. If you need to see 3 signs, then
it's too much. So that's why it's just default I do this, you know. And I might be in. What about if I want to kind of move out of here? Now I'm moving to yet another level of the language. Now I'm going to stick mode.
What's that?
This one's a lot of fun, you know. So, I mean, how would we get this, you know? How would we get with stick mode? It's not, so you go, no, not that, 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 no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Because I'm stuck every time I do something. When you say mode, it takes whatever the quality or whatever it is you're modifying, everything becomes that. So if I say pointillist mode, everything I'm doing is going to be pointillism to some degree. You have to be like pointillist kind of offense in the minimalism. You know, so if I say long tone mode, everything I do is long tones. You know. So
you don't have to show continuous scan or whatever, because it becomes the scan in long tone mode.
Well, I could still show continuous scan or continuous scan, but it would just be long tones each time. Right. Yeah, I would still have to do the scanning correctly. But if I'm understanding right, then yeah, when I do this, it's long tones. 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 Everything is long tones. When you speak, it's long tone speaking.
I don't understand stick mode.
So stick mode was, it means everything you do. Stick mode with hit will take at least 2 times to show the duration of what you're going to do. It has to go bop, 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 bop. You can't do it 1 time because you don't know the duration between first hit and second hit. You know, so that's stick mode. So stick mode means whatever. It's like being in launch mode and standing here like this and holding the long tones. But instead of standing here, I'll just put myself in stick mode and do this, and it stays.
But it always stays when you do long tone.
No, when you go like this, it does.
Yeah.
But this, when in stick mode, you can go.
Oh yeah.
And you know, you can go from one thing to the next and stick it. So it's really, really, really.
It's like launch mode, but with stick.
Yeah.
It's,
It's launch. Yeah, it's launch mode with stick.
Yeah.
But the shortcut is stick mode. And then some people, there's a woman in North Carolina, a sound painter there with a group, and she does a version of it. She calls it's the same thing. It's kind of a, not the correct way, but it's play mode. Play mode. In other words, everything, like it gets a play, like it's got to play. Like I already said, play. Like I already said, play.
Yeah, but it's like launch mode.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing.
yeah. You were going to apply stick mode to something with acting, and I didn't get that.
No.
No? Oh, I thought you were.
No, it's going to speak about
Okay.
this snapshot. I think, and then actually, yesterday you asked about drone, and I didn't. You said, "Oh, what's that?" Somebody signed it, and I remember that you didn't remember what it was. So remember, snapshot. Drone is like an undulation, a drone like this, and it can be on different levels. It's on the vertical field here. So drone is an undulation between pitches, a slow. It's that, like you're stirring a big kettle, stirring a kettle of sound.
Mm-hmm.
So it has that kind of moving, slow moving kind of, intertwining kind of motion, So that's drone, and this would be a low drone, or a mid-range drone, or a high drone. So imagine I say whole group drone. For the dancer, it's a level thing, and they're moving slow, and also, it's not a level thing. It's a slow movement, but you get to move a little bit quicker and change the movement some. Like you can work with 3 or 4 tempos, for the long tone. So that's what the dancer does. And the actor, she, that's droning as an actor. The musician is obvious, the low end piano. So imagine you have a whole group doing a drone. Now everybody's doing a drone. Now I want to take that kind of ambience, that quality, that mysterious kind of material that's going on, and I wanted to affect every single gesture that comes after that. Every gesture. So I say whole group snapshot. Now I just ask you to, that's in the memory family. So the memory is of this, undulation, this mood that comes from this. So now we're in snapshot. So now it has this kind of real mysterious, low, slow, undulating. So when I do this, and if I scan, you're not going to play a drone. Whatever material you play is going to have that driving it. It's going to have that quality driving it. Whether you play something high in register, or everything you do has to be affected by this. So when I say point to point, it's affected by it. You don't play a drone, it's your point to point is affected by this ambience that comes from a drone, So I say, whole group laugh, for example. Boink, right? Everybody's laughing. I say, snapshot it. Now everything I do is going to be happy and funny and gleeful and playful and maybe in a major scale. And everything you do is just going to be up and, wow, life's great, Everything after that becomes that. So you're snapshotting the material, the ambience. And it's really cool. And then to get rid of it, 2 things. You can say snapshot, tear up, just like launch mode. Or you can say snapshot and you put it in your pocket for later. And then you bring it back out.
That's a sign for bringing
Yes, it's called put in pocket. Snapshot 1, put in the pocket. It's in the memory family. And they're real easy to remember. Because you're remembering an ambiance. You're not remembering exactly what you played, like in memory. It's just it's a mood that you're remembering. So it's great for theater. It comes out of my work in theater, Soundpainting theater, because you snapshot a scene, you know, and the way the people are playing towards each other, the way they're acting, and, you know, and then that carries to every single thing that comes after. All of their dialogue, all of their relate to, everything. You know, so it's cool. I use it a lot. That's one of my
What was the name of this once more?
Drone.
Drone.
Like the drone. It's not really like the drone.
The drone which is flying in Star Wars to detect the...
It's not like that drone. And there's a few names, right? There's with the drone string on the sitar has the strings that just drone.
I just went to the Indian music workshop and had a drone. He put a drone. It was
Yeah.
on the drone where we were playing. So it was as if we had a tabla and a sitar playing at the same time.
Yeah, and it had the drone going, and it's part of it.
Yeah, it was an electronic.
Yeah, oh, they did it that way.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's a drone. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it is in Soundpainting too. It's that kind of undulation, you know. Not the one in Star Wars. It's not the drone. But those are like the basic, or some of the basic things, you know. Question?
I have a question which is not completely related to the subject concerning what do you do with someone who doesn't want to participate anymore?
Well,
Because this is a group work, which
well,
I mean, it's also
that's it.
it would be interesting to know
It's-
if you were interested. Because
Well, I think it's
not
very
about
interesting.
acting in the movie.
No, but I think we were just meeting about any and everything. I just said, I'm here, so you guys have questions. I think it's fun to like, you know, to speak about this stuff.
Because I felt that it changed the group, and I think especially in sound painting, it's very direct, I think, compared to playing music, and then someone is kind of not happy for some reasons, and then it influences quite a lot the group.
It does. I mean,
How do you
I mean, just
how do you approach that?
to come back from a slightly different direction to answer your question. Like, remember the group of kids that came in, you know, and there was one little girl who Augustin had worked with before, I think, and he said, oh, she knows everything. She's come to my class in Brussels. Well, she wouldn't do it. She was so embarrassed and shy in front of her own, or whatever it was. She was not going to do it in front of her friends. Right? So, this is working towards answering this question. So, I mean, I've done a lot of teaching with children, a lot. And so, what I find, I've done this a few times here. What I did is I went over, you know, and I asked also, so we know what I said, and she said, you know, no. So then I knew that it would be easy to get her to do it if I got everybody to do it. Because as soon as I take it away from pointing at her, you know, then she's going to join. All I have to do is get the rest of them to do it. And that's real easy. I said, oh, everybody, just, you know, not even paying attention to her, you know. Everybody, let's try this. And then they could kind of hesitate and say, and then they did it, and then she did it. And then we did a bunch of signs. You know, so it's understanding that I'll tell another story, one more to you, and then it starts to hit towards this point, because there's something, as an educator, it's really good to know. I was teaching in the school about 12 years ago or so, and I was there for 10 weeks, and it was just a regular, everyday classroom. I was there 2 visits a week for 10 weeks. At the end of this time, my orchestra and other people from around the world would come into a Soundpainting think tank. So I kind of overlapped them. You know. And at the end of the 10 weeks, my orchestra would come and do some kind of performance for the kids or something. But anyway, so I had children that were 10 and 11 years old, in a class, one class, and it was a big class, about 45 or 50 kids, you know. And the first day I go in there, I walk in, and I've been told about this little boy named Timmy, who is, I forget what it's called in psychology terms, but he's kind of he's decided not to speak. And this little boy hasn't spoken for 3 or 4 years in public. At home he'll speak a little bit to his parents, but he hasn't spoken. In school for 4 years. He doesn't talk. He will not talk, right? So I've told, usually when I go into class, I'm told about people who are handicapped in some kind of way. So I was informed about him. I knew who he was, you know. So I started through the sound painting, teaching it and everything, and I could see in his eyes there kind of a little sparkle. Oh, this is cool, you know. And so then the next time I came, he brought a clarinet. So he was the only one in the class. Everybody else was, we were making handmade instruments. We were using our voice for long-tone handmade instruments for pointillism, whatever they want, banging on the desk and stuff for scanning and using speaking and all. You know, and the group learned about 65 signs. So I mean, they were in play, can't play, and all kinds of complex stuff after the 18 weeks. And they were good with it. They understood it as well as an adult. So all throughout this time, little Tim is playing his clarinet, you know, and he's just doing great with it. I mean, he's right on top of the gestures, so is everybody else, but he also was right on top of it. And in the I guess it was like the 9th and the 10th week, I took a blackboard like this, and I wrote about 15 or so signs on there, just content signs, or, you know, long tone and pointillism and minimalism. I put 15 of them up on the board, and I asked each, you know, student to come up, pick 2 and do something. You know, and the next one, pick 2 and do something. And over the 2 weeks, we went through every single student. And in the last week, the last day, I said, Tim, come up, you know. He got up, and I said, what would you like? And he said, long tone and pointillism. And the teacher went, boom. I remember looking over at her, and her face was like, he had not spoken for 4 years, and I got him to speak. I don't know what. I don't have a psychology degree or any such thing, but the reason I tell the story is, I don't know if he spoke after that. I don't know if I broke him out of the habit or what, but he spoke for the first time in 4 years in public because he had been in sound painting. And for me, to answer your question, the reason that he spoke is because I wasn't putting anything on him. For 20 visits, I was asking him to just give me yourself. Give me who you are. That's what I compose with. I compose with who you are. I don't say, here's a piece of music, you can't play it, you don't get the job. That's another world, and I respect that world enormously, and I come from that world. But in sound painting, it says, here's the gesture, show me what you can do with it. And everybody is as good at it as the next person. Your offer is just as important to me as the next person, because it's sound. And I'm not prejudiced against any sound. As a composer, I like all sounds. You know, I don't want to say, oh, I don't like that sound. That sound works for me somewhere in my composition. So for me, there hasn't been, in all the hundreds and hundreds of groups that I've sound painted, and as many times as I've taught it, I think I can remember only 2 people that didn't want to do it. Because if you offer the information and the philosophy and everything correctly, and there's nothing wrong with the person. If they don't come, like Clarice had something wrong. Clarice has had a hard time with a painter. I know her from last year, and she was really into this, and she loved it. But I know, not to speak about her in her personal life, but I know something personal happened to her, and I heard about it, and so it was hard for her. It had nothing to do with our class. She's been here for a month, and so it's been the case with everything. So you won't have this problem with people because you're asking them to be themselves in an environment where creativity is a very safe thing to do. because there's no error.
Okay.
Whereas so that doesn't happen. It depends on you as the sound painter. If you can, like for example, Butch Morris, who does a type of. Do you know Butch Morris? Do you know his work?
No.
You should all check out the work of Butch Morris. He's a friend of mine, and he's a new friend because for 20-something years we were at war with each other. He lives in New York City, and he has a language called conduction. And he uses a baton, a conductor's baton, almost for everything. He does use some hand gestures. And in concert, were we speaking about this? You know who Butch Morris is.
Not well, but when looking up sound painting,
yeah, he doesn't like his stuff on YouTube, so it's not very good on YouTube. But then again, there's a lot of crap on YouTube. There's a lot of good stuff. But anyway, you can find Butch Morris on YouTube. And you can find a lot of recordings. He's very well known in New York City. So there was always this war between conduction and sound painting, right? And finally, Butch and I got together. We got to be friends, and we're like brothers that never met. And finally met. So anyway, Butch's philosophy is quite different. And his philosophy is, you make a mistake, he is going to scream at you in the performance. He doesn't like what you're playing. He's going to come walk right up to you in the performance and whisper in your ear, don't play that fucking shit. Like that, right to you, right to you. So, and Butch and I have spoken about this. It's his philosophy, and he gets his results. A lot of people won't play with him afterwards. They just won't play with him anymore. But a lot of people will, too. People will say, oh, that's just Butch, and that's how he is. Because away from the performance and rehearsal, he's a sweet man. But boy, when he's in that group, and he's using conduction, you got to watch out. He'll scream at you. But the audience won't hear it. The public doesn't hear it. He comes up and says it to you. So for me...
But they are not professionals.
Oh, yes. Some of the best jazz musicians in the United States. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
What's the name of the system? Conduction?
Conduction.
Conduction.
Conduction. Look it up. Check it out. It's interesting because I bring up Butch because that philosophy will not work for the person who doesn't feel like they want to be there or they're not sure. Sound painting. I mean, I don't think there was anybody this week. I mean, Clarice has their own outside problems, but I don't think there was anybody. I can't think of anybody in any class or group that I've ever. One guy at the Grieg Academy in Norway, a pianist, the very first day with the orchestra at the Grieg Academy, the very first day he said, "I'm sorry, this is just not for me." I said, "Okay, fine, nice to meet you. You change your mind, come back." And then that happened once when I was doing a Haydn concerto, getting ready to record it. This one violist got up and he left, like in the first 10 minutes or something. I don't know why, but it was he didn't like sound painting. But that's just two people in thousands.
I did have that problem with groups, especially with young people who like want to do something different because they don't have the experience of listening to modern classical music, to contemporary music, they play pop music and things like that. So most of them think it's fun, but I don't have to do it every week with them.
So you haven't had the experience of someone leaving?
No, not someone leaving, but I've had the experience that they said, "Oh, not again sound painting." That I have.
No? Well, I mean, it's maybe, the better you get at it,
yeah, but I think it's also
the better you will be able to spot.
Yeah, but
like if you're talking about a teaching situation and a student, that's a whole different animal.
That's true.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
If you're talking about the classroom, then it's another set of dynamics. Like how do you get that person? Well, sometimes
but it's a thing we also talked about when some people who when you said like some with improvisers who are very skilled at improvisation and who have a lot of experience that they sometimes they don't like it because they don't want to be interrupted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they want to do their own thing.
I tell you, sometimes the improviser, the hardcore improviser, does not like something.
Yeah.
It's not their medium. It's not what it's not what they're working towards. I respect that.
Sorry, I have to stop. My battery is low.
teachers to come and play.